So moving into science right now, there is a video clip that is about a minute or so that I really would like to stop here and have you watch it for a minute, and then I'll continue.
This is a map of someone's brain, showing roughly which areas respond when they hear different words. For example, there's a small area in the middle frontal gyrus that reliably responds to hearing the word top. But it's not just one word, one location. A single word can activate a whole range of different brain regions. So we find the word top in a bit of brain that seems to respond to words associated with clothing and appearances. But also here with numbers and measurements. And here with buildings and places. We usually think of language as being restricted to certain sections, like the temporal lobe. So researchers were surprised to find activity all across the brain and in both hemispheres. The map was made by scientists at the University of California, Berkeley. They put volunteers in an MRI scanner and had them listen to stories for 2 hours.
Back in the front again, deep, and she pulls out a pack of matches that have been laundered at least once.
By monitoring blood flow to different parts of the brain, they worked out which places were responding to the meaning of the words, the semantics. They found that different bits of the brain responded to different kinds of words and concepts. And they could group them into rough categories, shown here by the different colours. Dark green bits, for example, were most activated by words to do with numbers, red bits by social words. Here in the right temporoparietal junction, this speck of brain, just a few millimetres across, was found to respond to words like wife, mother, pregnant and family. And this bit just next door responds to some of the same social words like family and wife, but also words to do with places and people like house and owner. Generally, the concepts represented in each brain region relate to other functions that scientists already know about. So words to do with how things look, such as stripes, are likely to be found near the visual cortex. And although each individual's map is different, looking at these 3 brains, it's clear that different people have the same kinds of concepts in the same kinds of places. This is the first time we've been able to map the semantic systems of the brain in such detail, discovering that words are grouped by meaning, and revealing just how complicated and widespread the word maps in our heads really are. And the brain map is available online for anyone to explore.
Apparently, the brain will mix the literal and the symbolic functions together when it hears a metaphor. So, for instance, if you close your eyes a minute and I'll say to you, today that I was in a hairy situation or I was in a sticky situation. What happens is you'll feel it and you'll understand it differently than if I say, today was difficult. I was in a difficult situation today. So using the fMRI, which is the functional MRI, which we can use today. Before, we had to rely on clients that had parts of their brain that were disabled or not working. And now with the fMRI, we can just see it sees where the blood flow is increased. And if we assume that the neurons use more blood flow when they are excited, then we can trace where in the brain these neural connections are lighting up or happening at the moment. So what they've discovered when they've been reading metaphors to people or talking about metaphors with people, that there's a place in the brain called the corpus callosum, which is there's a picture that you can see on the screen right now. It is a little portion that connects the left and the right hemisphere together. It's often compared to a superhighway, where you've got information of cars going one way and information of cars going another way. And then what I like to think about it is that between those two cars, you have people exchanging maybe little sticks and with information on them. And so as the cars go, the two sides get to exchange information. Or you can say that the corpus callosum is like a coach and tries to coordinate between one side and another side. So we know now that for higher learning, what is required is that the whole brain work together. So the metaphor actually activates this part in the brain that connects the right side to the left side. Moving now to the Tao, basically we're talking about the same thing. We're talking about the Tao sees it as that everything is a unit, and that unit could have sides to it. But what we try to do to live in harmony is not to break those two sides, but to have a way to communicate those two sides. So just like with the metaphor that awakens the connection of different parts of the brain, that's exactly what the Tao asks us to do, is to awaken, to find ways to connect and live harmoniously in the universe. And as a matter of fact, the Tao in itself is all a metaphor. If you read the chapters, in the first chapter of the Tao, it says, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao, or the Tao that can be named is not the eternal name. So here we are studying something that they say is unnameable and unattainable in the mind and can't be written about in words. And that's because our language it doesn't have all the tools to be able to explain everything. So what we do with using a metaphor is we try to reach closer to the Tao, or closer to an understanding. But the metaphor isn't the understanding. It's just getting closer to it. So, for instance, in the Tao, they often compare, they say that the best place a person can be is to be like water. If you read chapter 8, it says the supreme goal is like water, which nourishes all the things without trying to, and it's content with the low places. So if we want to be in harmony with the Tao, then be like water, go down to the lower places, or be humble. Nourish everything without judgment. You know, the rain will fall on the weed as much as it will fall on the flower. Or you can go to chapter 78, which says nothing is as soft and as yielding as water, yet to dissolve the hard, nothing can suppress it. So just like how the water is so soft, but it will break through a rock because of its, if it keeps brushing up against it, it can sever a rock. So the Tao, in like every chapter you read, practically there's a metaphor, because it is unexplainable in words. Even TCM, or Chinese medicine, uses metaphors when it talks about the 5 elements, or actually in Chinese medicine it is more correctly the 5 phases, transforming things. And if we look at the phase of the fire, right? So it's analogous, or it has a metaphor to the heart. And the heart and the mind are connected. So if we think of fire, we're trying to understand how the mind works or the heart works, and we compare it to fire. So we say, well, fire doesn't have a shape of its own. It's shaped according to the circumstances and the causes and conditions around it. So when we think of our mind and our heart, we think, okay, what are the causes and conditions that will create what is being shaped in our heart and our mind, just like what happens with the fire. And then we can look further and go, well, if there's too much wind on the flame and it's not steady, it's just going too wild, maybe we can think of ways, what would we do for that flame? We could, well, if we can't stop the wind, we can maybe protect it protect the flame with glass around it. So what would that be as a metaphor for us? How could we put like something glass around us to protect us from too much outside chaos? However, if you put the glass hermetically over the flame, it will also extinguish it. So again, we're doing that comparison with a heart that is, or a mind that is all chaotic because of what is happening on the outside. How do we adjust it so that the flame will be just so and not too wild and not be extinguished?